I don't think they made it that way.
Okay. I am going to ask you a question, and I want you to close your eyes just for a moment. And I want you, if I ask you, what is your way? Just think about what that is. What was the first things that pop up into your mind? Your way. Is it your work? Is it your children? Is it your home? Your husband? Your family? Is your way about a habit or a comfort? Just think about what your way is. I think sometimes we don't have this courageous conversation with ourselves. We think about, sometimes we can think about our way as being, if you were like our solar system, the planets revolve around the sun. If you were, what do you revolve around? What do you revolve around? Does everyone have that in their mind? Okay. When I said this last week, when I asked the Lord what He wanted us to know about the shoes shod with the readiness of the gospel of peace, His answer very clearly to me said, you tell them I am the way. I am their way. I am their way. I am their way. And it's easy to hear that, but to actually put feet to that, it's like, okay, that sounds very abstract. Jesus is my way, but I don't really know what that looks like, how to walk that out, how to live that out. Because as we know, our feet are only what we carry out in our minds and our hearts. Our feet go to the things that first begin in our minds and our hearts. So if your way is Christ, what you're going to see your feet going and doing those things and running to those things that's all about Christ. Do you know what I'm saying? And then even our visions of what that is different, because so many of us have misperceptions about who Christ is and who God is. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. That's what we're going to be talking about today. I have a friend who works in the women's ministry, and she works in the women's prison ministry. And I talked to her recently, and she told me something that was very interesting. And I haven't forgotten about it. And she said that she goes into prisons, and when the very first time she meets with new women in a prison, she says to them, she asks them to raise their hands and says, okay, how many of you, this is your first time? And she said, there's usually not many hands. Then she says, how many, it's your second time? And there's a few that go up. And then she goes on, third, fourth, fifth, and then the hands go up. So, and she says, what if I can tell you if you're going to be back here or not? And she asked first, how many of you want to come back here? And of course, no hands go up. None of them want to come back, but they seem to keep finding their way there. And so she says, what if I could tell you whether or not you'll be back? And they're like, how? You don't know that. How can you do that? And she's like, I can tell. And she said, let me ask you this. Tell me what that thing is that you cannot wait to get to when you get out of here. Is it a drug? Is it a drink? Is it a man? Is it to that same place that you were at when you came here? Because if it is, you're coming back. Guaranteed. That's the way. That way, there is a way that seems right to man, but its end is death. And if we can know our path, we can look at our feet. If we really look at it, we're such sheep that we usually don't look past the next bunch of grass. But if we really take a look at our path, we can see our way. And we can question and say, is this the way? Is this the way that Christ would have me go? And sure enough, those women are confronted with the fact that, yeah, they will end up back because that's that thing that they can't wait to get to. Even if it's an argument, you just got to go justify yourself to this person. And in your mind, you're always having that conversation. I can't wait to tell them they're wrong. I can't wait to show them. For me, when I was growing up, a lot of my adult life was spent trying to show my family or show this unseen force that I was somebody. And so I was driven to become something so that whoever this was, these people that made me feel insecure my whole life would know that I was somebody. I was going to get an education. I was going to do everything everyone said I couldn't do so I could be something. And then it took Jesus taking me down, and trying to get it through my thick head still. Girl, you've always been something. You've always been something because you've always been mine. And you've got to let me be your way. I am your way, Rhonda. You've always been something to me. You've been planned since before I even began the world. And you know, I'm still struggling with believing that, but that's what's true. And that's the way I want to walk in. And if you belong to him, you are something. And there's a way that he has for you to walk that has nothing to do with your feet. But if you get in your mind and in your heart that he is your way, how much he loves you, and how much he has planned for you that's bigger than you can think or imagine. If you can get that from in here and here, guess what's going to happen? Your feet are going to start walking in it. You're going to go places that you never thought you would go. And you're going to do things that in your wildest dreams you never thought you could do. Because he is bigger than you are. And he's bigger and greater than what you can imagine. It's not about your feet. And we've got to get our eyes off our feet. And keep our eyes on Jesus, the founder and the perfecter of our faith. And as we keep our eyes on him, we will walk on water. And you won't even realize it. You'll get to heaven, and he'll show you where you're walking. You're like, whoa, how was I doing that? And he's like, Sonny, you had your face on me. You didn't even know where your feet were going. It was me doing it through you. It's going to be an awesome time when we get to see what we have been able to do through our Christ if we allow him to become our way. So, he wants you girls to know he brought you here to tell you he is your way. He is your way. And I love it that he is our way. And it's not something we see with our feet. It's not something tangible. Because if it were, we would worship that. You know what I'm saying? And there are many people that do. They take Jesus, they take their perception of God, and they put it in a list of strategies, a to-do list, and they say, this is the way, I'm going to walk in it. And then they measure themselves and everyone else by this list. And that's religion, and that is legalism, and that is not Jesus. And do you know what? That's why so many people,
because then you would cling to.
Yeah, we cling to it, and there's so many people here that think they're clinging to a cross, and they're clinging to a grave. That is not Jesus. If Jesus could be conceived that way, that easily, he wouldn't be God. Think about it. If man could conceive in his mind God, would you really want to follow him? Heck no. And nothing I create, I don't want myself following, much less any of my children. I know what I am, and I sure don't want to follow someone else's perception of who God is. I want the real thing. I want to follow God. And I know I'm not going to do it perfectly because I know what I am. But as much as I can do, as much as I can have of him, I want. I want it more than I want the breath I breathe. I want Jesus. I want to follow him. I want to know him. I want to walk the real thing. I don't care about the pleasures of this life. I don't care about earthly security. I want Jesus. I want him to be my security. Ultimately, that's what life is. That's our way. That's our truth. That's our life. That is our way, our truth, and our life. If we could create something that existed outside of him, we would cling to it. And many of us are. Many of us are. And it may be a comfort. And I brought something. This used to be my favorite pair of shoes. And thank goodness I could only find one, because if not, I would be wearing these later on today. I don't know what happened to my other one, but it must have been a God thing, because I don't think that Jesus wants me wearing these shoes anymore, because these are really ugly.
Those remind me of some leopard slippers.
I'm not kidding you, y'all. I don't know how old these are, but these shoes have seen some mileage, okay? And sometimes I have looked at what I've worn in public with Andy's shoes, and I've said, oh my goodness, I cannot believe my kids want to be seen with me. What is wrong with me? I've worn these to church, y'all, on Wednesday nights, many times. And then ran into people like Leslie Busby and been like, oh no.
But what's wrong
But
about what's wrong about those shoes? It's not about your shoes, it's about your heart.
I know, it's my heart, but I just,
with Christ. So,
I mean,
those shoes are comfortable.
They're comfortable, and sometimes
feel that love and just do what you have to do.
I just did what I had to do, y'all. I just had to get in the car and get to church, and I didn't look at what I was wearing before I got here. And
That's good.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that these,
clinging to the comfort.
yes, what these shoes represent to me are my comfort. And y'all, I'm not kidding you. I'm a comfort junkie. I want comfort. I finally threw away my pink robe this week that I've been wearing for years, that's got holes all in it, stains all over it. It's the nastiest thing. And I use it to wipe my nose on. When I'm doing my quiet times, I often cry. It's got tears, snot, everything all over it. And I was just like, you know what, robe? You're out of here. And I actually bought a new pink robe to replace it. So, but I'm a comfort junkie. And so I often cling. What often will get in my way is my comforts. It's not even something like, redeemable, like a family or my husband or career, something. It's like, no, it's laying on the couch and watching TV and being in what makes me feel good, and instead of just, doing what Christ wants me to do, instead of sometimes even spending time with Him.
Focusing on your own needs.
Yeah, and sometimes we walk in the way of comfort. And sometimes what's keeping us from the way of Christ is our comfortable shoes. We just want to go back to them. And you know what they are. Each one has their comfortable shoes. These shoes are my favorite shoes. And I'm telling you, they are not easy to walk in.
You said that last week about your other shoes were your favorite shoes.
Hey, with those shoes, you should put that arm thing again.
Oh yeah, I should
Right
put
now,
my fall wrist on. You're right.
Fall with those things.
That's a good idea. My husband, y'all don't know this, but while I was up here teaching, my husband poked his head in because he knows what shoes I'm wearing, and he said, "Sit down." He said, "Get a chair, sit down," because he knows I'm a fall risk. And so, anyway, he cracks me up. Okay, I can't remember which. Okay, thanks a lot. Now I don't even remember what. Now I'm thinking about what shoes I wore last week instead of thinking about what the lesson is. Because I may have more than one pair of favorites. But usually my favorites have some kind of animal print on them. That's what kind I usually like. I don't know why I've got a deal for that. But anyway, so these shoes are not that comfortable, but they are my favorites. They look good, and I feel good when I'm walking in them. And that's what it's like when you're walking with Jesus. Maybe it's not the most comfortable, but you know that that's the right shoes to be wearing. You know that that's the right shoes to be wearing. And you might even, when you wear those shoes, you might risk falling. You might be a fall risk when you wear them. But it's okay, because you're getting somewhere. You're getting somewhere with Him. And when we wear these comfortable shoes, and I don't know, I hope this, I'm going to go into this in more detail, but you could live your whole life in comfort and never get anywhere. Because to go somewhere of eternal value, to really go somewhere, to get from point A to point B with Christ, you cannot wear these shoes. You cannot wear these shoes and these shoes at the same time, even though I'm doing it right now, but this is just for an example. You have to choose. If you're going to walk with Christ, you have to completely let go and abandon those and put on your Jesus shoes and go forward. And it will be Him that is walking through you as you go. We're going to talk about that a little
You
bit more
might
so
have
you'll
comfort,
understand.
but he'll come across and pull that comfort out
Yes,
and make you walk in
He will
the
make
high
you walk
heels
in
that we
them.
don't really feel comfortable in.
Exactly. And she has a good point. If you get too comfortable in your comfortable shoes, He will pull the comfort out from underneath you. So His will be done, His kingdom come, whether you like it or not. And that's the good thing about Jesus is He's taking you from point A to point B, whether you like it or not. If you get too comfortable, He's going to have to boot you out. But He's not going to let you live your life in the tomb if you're His. He's not going to let you live your life in the tomb. And that's to His glory and to your glory that He doesn't. One of the things that we talked about last week, which I wanted to go over again just to touch on, is that the very first question we hear God asking in the Bible, in the very beginning, the very first question we ever hear Him saying is, "Where are you? Where are you?" And it was right after Adam and Eve fell. And it just, that's a question. He asks it all throughout the Bible. Where are you? And I feel like He's asking us that every day. Where are you? Are you walking in me, or are you walking in you? Where are you? Because you know, and by asking the question, He's asking you, are you going to come home to where I am? He's asking you to come home to where I am. I want you where I am. I want you where I am. You were made for me. You were made to walk with me. Where are you? And that's in Genesis 3. And our answer to that question will determine whether we trust Him or not. Because the reason why we are not in Him is because we just don't flat believe Him. We believe that we can get from our point A to B better than Jesus can. And I had a little diagram because I was praying about how to show this. And I'm like, Lord, but what is the way? Here is the way. Equal trust. Equal Jesus. There's a path set for us from the beginning of time. There's a way for us, that He made a way for us. But we're so often going to go here and go here. Go over here. And every time we get off that path, it's due to one thing. It may be due to many, many things, but it all boils down to one thing, which is this. Unbelief. We just flat don't believe Him. We don't believe Him, or we don't know His word, so we don't even know what to believe. It's unbelief. We just say it could be unbelief in a relationship, or it could be unbelief that His way is better than your way. You could believe that if I follow Jesus, then my flesh isn't going to be satisfied. So you're believing that He's not going to satisfy you. You could believe that if I walk with Jesus, I may never get this, which is something your flesh wants. So you're going to believe that what that thing that you want is better than Jesus. Do y'all get what I'm saying? There's a root, and it all boils down. At the end of the root, there's unbelief. There's unbelief. It's the root of all sin. In fact, it's the way the enemy got to Eve in the first place. Did God really say? Did God really say? It's unbelief. It's the root of all of it. It's so, but there is a way in Christ. And it's always boils down to, I'm going to choose to trust God. And the way that we get back into this path is by saying no. Regardless of the flesh, regardless of how loud my flesh is screaming right now, I am going to choose to trust Christ. And it could be as simple as with what Jesus did. When He was tempted in the wilderness, He continually said, to the enemy, every time he was tempted, he continually said the words of his Father back to the enemy. It is written. It is written. It is written. And that's exactly how we do it. That's how we get from here to here. Regardless of what my mind is saying, regardless of what my flesh is saying, it is written. This here is the breath of God. It's not just a book. It's got to be more than just a book to you. It's the very breath of God. The same breath that when he got down and he breathed his life into Adam, and Adam became a living creature made in the image of God, it's the same breath that is in this. It's the same breath that when Jesus was dead for 3 days, brought him back to life. That same breath is in us. And that same breath is what resuscitates us when we say it is written. And sometimes, y'all, it's hard. Sometimes I have to get my Bible and I'm like, Lord, I can't even think of what you wrote right now, but I'm just going to put this book here and just say, it is written. My flesh is wanting to go this way so bad, but my heart and my mind know that you are my way. And Lord, it is written. And somehow, some way, Lord, I'm looking at some scary stuff right now. But you are my way. You are my truth. You are my life. In some way, somehow, there's something bigger going on here, Lord. And I choose to trust you. I choose to trust you, Jesus. It is written. The very breath of God. And he will become our way. And when we stand before him, just to show you there's some activity, because the shoes are so important, y'all, because the shoes are a reflection of our journey here. It's where we walk. It's the territory we're going to cover while we're here on earth. What we do here on earth, where we go, is so fast. I've had a glimpse of that this summer. It's so fast. It's over so quick. My life could be over in just a matter of weeks. It could be over tomorrow, today even. So fast. But what we do here makes a difference for eternity. Makes a difference for eternity. So we can't risk not caring about what our way is. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's got to be forefront here so that it can be walked out here. Because one day we're going to stand before God. And what do we hope? What are those words we hope to hear?
Well done.
Well done, good and faithful servant. What does that mean? Well done.
Well done, he's way.
Right. There's an inflection that there was some activity here, right? That there was some faithfulness here, right? So I don't want to be legalistic, and I do not want to say it's a list of to-dos and don'ts, because it's not. Anyone that tells you to be a Christian, you've got to do A, B, C, and D, and E, and F. Anyone that says they know the way, they don't know the way. Because the way is not something tangible. The way is Christ. It's walking with him and through him. The well done is not going to be because you knew A, B, C, and D, and you got an A++. The well done is going to be because you trusted in the way, and he was able to live his life, and your feet became his feet, and your hands became his hands, and your eyes became his eyes, and your mind became his mind, and your heart became his heart. And you loved people you could never love without him. And you walked to places you could never go without him. And you said things you could never say without him. And you trusted like you could never trust without him. That is the well done. And it does imply some walking things out here on earth. And some walking through some hard things, and some walking through some things with courage. To hear that, well done, good and faithful servant. You're a servant. Because you allow Christ to be manifest in you. You allowed him to publish who he is to the world. That is what well done means, good and faithful servant. We must allow God to ask us that question, where are you? In 2 Corinthians 10:3, for though we walk according to the flesh, we do not wage war according to the flesh. We choose peace with God over peace with the flesh. And when you have peace with God, it's so much greater than peace with the flesh. I can tell you this journey I'm in right now with my health, and possibly getting ready to go through chemo pretty soon. I cannot tell you how excited I am. Not because of chemo. I'm not excited about that at all, but I am excited because I have such peace. And I know that it's not for me. And so I don't know what is ahead, but I know something good. I don't know what's ahead, but there's something good there. My Prince of Peace is with me, and he is being manifested in my flesh, and I'm excited. It sounds weird to say that, even for me to hear myself saying it. But I am excited because Jesus is taking me somewhere new, and I get to see more of him and less of me. And that is thrilling to me. And that is thrilling to me. I'm thrilled about it. And so, any battle that we face has its origin and its resolution in Christ, in the spiritual realm. The battle we face here has its origin and its resolution in Christ. So every time you get out of this way to start to try to resolve something in your flesh, guess what you're doing? You're wasting precious time. Because your resolution's never going to be here or here. Your resolution's only going to be here. And your peace is never going to be here or here. It's only going to be here. And anyone who has walked through some of the hardest things in life knows that. You've tried to take your hands and your feet and figure it out and twist it and turn it every which direction. You've tried to fix it. You've tried to battle it. You've said, no way, I can do this. And you've tried and tried and tried until you fell down, exhausted, at the end of yourself, at your wit's end, and said, I cannot do this anymore. And said, if there is a God, you've got to help me. And at that moment, that's when the peace came. And your situation didn't change one bit, but your heart and your mind did. And as your heart and your mind changed, he started walking with you. And you got to see him work out his way in your life. And I know many of you in here, and I know many of you have experienced that, or are experiencing it right now. Jesus said, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you, not as the world gives it. That's why we're never going to find it here and here. Let your hearts not be troubled, neither let them be afraid. And there's an implication that peace is something that we have within us. But you know what's beautiful? When we have his peace within us, the world sees it. And sometimes you may be the only peace that they see. You may be the only peace that they see. Like we talked about last week, that the word that Paul talked about, how we are his public. We are written on. We are his writing. We talked about the word published. We talked about the word published and how we are his written word, written on human hearts. How God writes who he is on human hearts, no longer on stone like the Ten Commandments, but on human hearts. And we are his book to be read to the world. And sometimes the world is waiting to see true peace. And I wonder how many people in the world have ever really seen it. And it seems as things get more and more crazy and things become more and more unraveled, it seems almost as if in today's day and age, it's almost like this great unraveling is taking place, and it's just coming apart, and everything's becoming unglued between the economy and the wars and the weather and families and what's going on with kids, and I can't even handle it. It's just like, it's coming. It used to be like you would hear something major, and you'd be like, oh, we've got to pray about this. Like maybe every 2 weeks, and now it's like 7 times every day. And I can't even keep up with it all. I'm like, Jesus, I don't even know. I don't even know where to start praying. You're going to have to tell me how to pray. There's just too much. There's too much going on. And he does. But he is the peace. And as things become more and more unraveled, people are looking for peace. And where do you think they're going to find it? They're going to find it in Christ. But where does Christ expect people to see it? In you. and in me. We are his word. The word became flesh and dwelt among us. We are to become his word and dwell among this world, and to bring his kingdom here on earth as it is in heaven. We are in this world, but we are not of this world. We are in this world, but we are not of this world. So what do your feet say about your journey? What do your feet say about what your way is? Who your way is? Is your way really Jesus, or is your way you? And it may be difficult to answer that question, but I promise you, if you will take the time and have an honest conversation with the Lord about your answer to that question, it will be the most important thing you've ever done. Is your way really about you? Sometimes our way is even about thinking that we have a way with Jesus. But really, we are saying, I am God, and there is none beside me. And even you, Jesus, will bow down to me. And that will never happen. He is going to be Lord. He is going to be Lord. So I just challenge you, ladies, and I challenge myself. Have that courageous conversation. Is my way about you, Lord? Or is my way really about me? I promise you, he will show you the truth. And the truth will set you free. Because true freedom is not being tied to anything in this world. Not even yourself. True freedom is living above this world. Being in it, but not of it at all. Just like we can't wear this shoe and this shoe at the same time, there's too many Christians walking around like this. Get my Jesus on! And you're looking at them and you're like, really? That's what he is? Wow. I'm really not so impressed. You know? And I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of myself sometimes because I do that. I get sick of it. I'm like, girlfriend, you sit down right now and you get it straight. You put your real Jesus shoes on or you do not leave the house. I'm tired of living like that. If I die going forward in Jesus' shoes. If I fall because I'm wearing them with my fall risk, then so be it. I'm falling forward. I'm falling right into his arms. There is a woman that totally displayed this, who I want to share with you. And the story of her is in John 12, 1 through 8. And it's the woman who washed Jesus' feet. And he showed me so much through this beautiful story, things I've never seen before. And I've read this so many times. And I'm going to read you the scriptures real quick, where it says, 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at the table. Mary, therefore, took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of the disciples, who was about to betray him, said, "Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief, and having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put in it. Jesus said, "Leave her alone, so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. The poor you will always have with me, but you will not always have me with you." And I wanted to share this woman with you and introduce her in a way that maybe you haven't seen her before, in a way that Christ showed me who she was in a new way this week. And there's a portion of a Bible study that I wrote that talks about this. I'm going to read it to you right now, and then I'm going to, we're going to talk about her briefly and close with a song about her. If we were to read this account in the book of Mark, 14 through 3 through 9, we would see that Mary broke the flask and poured it over his head. In those days, they didn't have perfume bottles like we have, where you could open it and put a little on and then put it back on. This ointment that they had, this oil, was very, very expensive. And it was so precious that it was only meant to be used once. And usually, what women kept it for was for their wedding day. It's for their